that was appropriately impassioned and terrifying and awesome all at once. All right, now here's the thing. Security, as we're now all very clear, is very important. Security is very difficult unless you have standards. I want to give you a case in point. There's something called TLS. You probably don't know what it is, except every time you see a little lock symbol when you're using your web browser, it means that that connection is encrypted, and so you can do banking or whatever you want to do invisibly. That is a standard that the W3C, the web standards body, had to ratify so that everyone could start to use the web commercially and use it safely. So smart people are now busily thinking about taking the time to craft the standards for IoT that create both the foundation for interoperability, but also for security. To talk about the needs and the potential of IoT standards, please welcome Piers Hogarth-Scott, the IoT leader for KPMG Australia.
Morning, everyone. I'm going to talk about interoperability and why interoperability is so important for a smart, connected world, and how it can really, I guess, unlock some of the goodness that we're all trying to achieve here. Because at the end of the day, IoT is an ecosystem. There is no one single vendor out there that can deliver an end-to-end solution for a city, for an agriculture solution, whatever it might be. It requires a multitude of technologies to come together to deliver that solution. That means that interoperability is absolutely essential to the success of it, because without interoperability, you've got different technologies that are trying to communicate with each other or work together, and they simply don't talk to each other. It's like having somebody who speaks French and somebody who speaks English. They just can't communicate with each other. It really is almost as simple as that. But first, just to share a couple of statistics. We all know that IoT is going to be phenomenally sizable, not only in terms of the many trillions of dollars that everybody forecasts will extract in terms of economic benefit over the next 9 or 10 years. Doesn't matter whether McKinsey, IDC, or Cisco. Everybody's forecasting multi-trillions dollars, and that, of course, is largely driven by the explosion in sensors. What we're rapidly seeing, of course, is the instrumentation of everything. And once everything is fully instrumented, then, of course, we can measure it and we can analyze it and we can act on it, and we can start predicting the future and we can start optimizing the environment, and so on and so forth. From an Australian point of view, and this is a slide that's come from the IoT Alliance of Australia. They're forecasting around about $116 billion of economic uplift, annual economic uplift, by 2025 in Australia alone. That's a phenomenal sum of money in terms of the benefit to the economy that we're expected to realise in a very, very short time. If you look at how IoT's evolved over the years, I remember when I used to work in the dot-com days in the latter part of the 90s in London, that the connected Coke machine was all the rage. And isn't it funny how we've progressed rapidly through that time with an increasing number of connected devices, whereby in the future and in the next few years, we really will increasingly see the instrumentation of pretty much everything. Also, the adoption of technology has just been exponentially increasing, starting with from obviously electricity, the telephone, and then fast forward to the mobile phone and social media. And you can only assume that that acceleration of adoption will continue with all of the advances in technology, and of course IoT has a significant role to play with that. But the really interesting thing is that right now today, only 1% of things are connected. And the explosive growth that we're seeing in that is largely driven by the decreased cost of the sensors, the decreased cost in the bandwidth, and of course the processing power. All of these items are leading to a confluence whereby over the next 10 years or so, the transformative nature of IoT will impact every single industry on the planet within the space of the next 9 or 10 years without fail. But we're still developing the building blocks. We're still at the early days of IoT. The ecosystem is exploding. It's fantastic. Every single day, massive innovation, new companies are spinning up. We're seeing organisations move from a shift of selling products to providing services. We're seeing that all around us. Security and standards are absolutely key in making this happen. It is a wonderful opportunity, IoT, but obviously it's a key security consideration as well. And the security aspects need to be baked into everything that we're doing from the outset. We're beginning to see standards emerge as well, and that's something that I really want to talk about today. And we're increasingly seeing both governments and also internationally recognised standard bodies starting to develop these frameworks. And in terms of interoperability, and perhaps we might frame it in the context of smart cities, because there's obviously a lot of activity in smart cities and it's an umbrella for a whole raft of different areas. But there's a good body of research that would indicate that interoperability will unlock around about 40% of the total value from IoT. Now, if you think about it, if you're a CEO of a city, or the mayor of a city, and you're about to make a multi-million-dollar investment in smart city initiatives, all of those initiatives had better work interoperability on an interoperable basis. Because if they don't, why would you write out that check? You also want to know that you're not going to be locked into that single vendor for the foreseeable future. IoT being an ecosystem play, it's absolutely critical that the CEO of that city has the capability to evolve that platform. And interoperability is the enabler for that. So the interoperability aspect not only gives the confidence to the CEO of the city, for example, to actually make those investments, it also provides them with the capability to evolve the platforms, and it also is of significant benefit to industry, to the IoT ecosystem, because it obviously helps propel the industry. It also enables the ecosystem to play together and collaboratively develop solutions. So I want to specifically talk about Hypercat. Hypercat is a standard that was established around about 3 years ago in the United Kingdom by the British government. Several £million were provided to the initial formation of Hypercat because the British government recognised that there are a number of smart city investments going on in the United Kingdom, and there was no single standard that these investments could hang off. During that time, BSI, British Standards, have got right behind Hypercat and have actually taken over, in the process of taking over, the management of that standard. And also Tim Berners-Lee's, the W3C Corporation, has also recently backed the Web of Things and how that relates to Hypercat. And it's in the process of moving towards ISO recognition. Standards Australia are looking to endorse it as well. And Hypercat really aims to do two things. One, create an interoperable ecosystem of IoT technologies to give confidence to the buy side. But secondly, also to be an inclusive one-stop shop of best practice IoT implementation through the sharing of knowledge, processes, and applications amongst the ecosystem. And in the United Kingdom, as an example, it is a key standard for smart city investments. So a number of cities like Manchester, for example, and parts of London and Bristol and others are fully Hypercat enabled, and that's largely been driven by the British government mandating that investments be built on the Hypercat standard. There's about 1,000 members, primarily in the UK for Hypercat today, and as you see, they span the majority of technology vendors, professional services firms, and others that you would expect. A couple of weeks ago, it was launched in Australia by the the Assistant Minister Angus Taylor, the Minister for Cities and Digital Transformation, and also Nick McInnes, the British Consul General, as an Anglo-Australian collaboration in smart cities and IoT. This obviously aligns really well with the federal government's initiatives in terms of their smart cities plan, both in terms of city deals and also in terms of their smart cities and suburbs program, whereby, if you don't know, the federal government has essentially running a program, $50 million program around the Smart Cities and Suburbs program, where they are inviting industry to collaborate with cities to develop smart city solutions and submit them for funding. And obviously, interoperability is a key component of it. So now we find ourselves in a situation where a standard such as Hypercat has been backed by both British and Australian governments, BSI, W3C, and other standard bodies are also circling it right today. This slide here is a slide that BSI put up at the Hypercat Summit in London a month or so ago, which really describes the relationship between the communities, if you like, such as smart cities and manufacturing, BIM, which is really surprising that we don't have BIM standards in Australia. It's a big driver in the United Kingdom. I think there are some discussions around that at the moment. Smart transport on the other. And then the layer of Hypercat and how it can bridge that gap, if you like, into the web of things. It was interesting. The Hypercat was essentially the minimum standard that around about 40 of the major vendors could comfortably agree together, and that was a good foundation to build on. And as you can see, PAS 212, which is the British, produced by BSI, which is the interoperability, this really provides a sort of high-level overview as to how Hypercat fits into the overall equation between, obviously, there's devices, gateways, cloud services, and then the Hypercat layer really sits in there, and then, of course, clients sit on top of that. It's a pretty lightweight JSON-based standard that doesn't require significant re-engineering from technology vendors, so everybody's pretty happy to work with it. There have been a number of spearheads that we've seen in the United Kingdom around Hypercat, and a whole vast community from the IoT ecosystem collaborating, whether it's smart buildings, smart highways, smart water, lighting, logistics, transport, so on and so forth. So I think the final message to share with everybody today is there is an invitation out there for the IoT ecosystem to really sign up and get involved with Hypercat as you feel fit. It is an independent, not-for-profit organisation that is looking to do a number of things, including collaborate with the federal government around the Smart Cities and Suburbs program. It's looking to also, of course, leverage best practice around IoT through the sharing of knowledge within the community, which is really important. And it's also designed to accelerate the market adoption of IoT. And it's free and it's open to everyone. So I'd encourage the ecosystem to jump onto hypercat.io/Australia. Thank you very much.